Now let's talk about creating object fields that allow us to select either things within the asset folder or other game objects in the scene. We'll need to open up our Hello World editor script inside of MonoDevelop. Below where we set our speed, let's reference the script's target field and set it to an editor GUI layout object field. We'll give it the label target. We'll pass in the default value, which will be script target. Next, we'll need to give it a type. Here, we'll use type of, and we'll use the type GameObject. And finally, we'll pass in the value true. This Boolean allows us to choose options from the scene. If we set this to false, we'd only be able to pick objects from the asset folder. Now let's close this method, and at the end of it, we're going to cast it as a GameObject. Since we know that we're filtering for types of GameObjects, it's safe for us to recast the return value as a GameObject so that we can save it inside of our target field. The object field by default will return a generic object. Let's save our code and take a look at how this works in Unity. Once it recompiles, we'll select our new sprite, and we should now have our target set to none with a type of GameObject. Let's open up the selector, and just like before in our scene, we can now select between the main camera, the new sprite, or nothing at all. Let's leave it at none for right now. If we go back in our code and change true to false, save it and go back into Unity, you'll now see that the selection is limited only to the asset folder. This is helpful if you wanted to have a field that only referenced something like a prefab, or if you wanted to bring in a text reference or something else from the asset folder only. Let's go ahead and change this back to true. We could also limit this to specific types of scripts. Let's change the type of to Hello World. We'll save our code and go back into Unity. Now you'll see the target is typed to Hello World. Here, we should be able to drag our new sprite onto the field, but it won't save. The reason why it won't save, though, is because the target is typed to a GameObject. Let's go ahead and fix this quickly. In our Hello World, we can go ahead and change the target to equal Hello World, and in the editor, we'll change the return type to cast it as Hello World. Now if we save our code and go back into Unity, we should be able to set the new sprite as the target. Also, if we open up the selection, you'll see that it's filtered down to only show new sprite, since that's the only GameObject that has a Hello World script. Let's go ahead and reset this back to none for now. This is really powerful when you're building out more complicated input fields and you want to make sure that GameObjects with specific types of classes are only available as the input.